Welcome back to the All-In podcast. I'm your host Hattie, and today I'm joined by Nikki, founder of a builder's merchant who swapped wedding photography for retail. We dive into how she made such a huge pivot, the realities of being a woman in a male-dominated industry, and her top tips on finance, stock management, and smart retail strategies like loss leaders. Nikki's energy is infectious. This episode is packed with practical advice for any product-based business. So join in.
This episode is sponsored by Riviera Iced Tea, taking over Lincolnshire and beyond, celebrating their success with now 50% off site-wide. Cheers to that. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Off the Course podcast. Today I have a very exciting guest with me who is a little bit different from our usual guests. There's no marketing, no cosmetics, no beauty industry here. So we're going to dive right in without further ado. Nikki, if you could introduce yourself, a little bit personal, a little bit professional, and I'm dying for you to tell everyone, what is it that you do?
Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm 33. I run a builder's merchant. I'm very different to most female founders. I haven't really met anyone else who does kind of what I do, females that do what I do. I have two boys who are 9 and 6. That's me really. I've been doing this. We opened the shop to the public in September. Obviously there was some building around that, so the shop's been open about 8 to 9 months now. We obviously had some infrastructure building and stuff before that, so for probably about the same amount of time before that actually.
I love that. And tell me about your background. Obviously you've not been open massively long, so what were you doing before? Have you always worked in sort of the construction industry, or is this a massive sidestep for you?
I've led a few different lives. So before I worked in construction, I was a wedding photographer. So obviously ran my own business doing that, but it was just kind of me, and it's kind of the only way you can do wedding photography is you're self-employed. So still a business, but on a kind of different scale, different type of business. A lot more like kind of other kind of more traditionally female founder, led businesses, a lot more kind of aesthetic and pretty. And then my husband owns a construction company and he builds new builds. And he started that when we were 24, I think we were 24. Actually, funny enough, 2 weeks after our first child was born, he started that. So that was like a lot at the time. So he started that anyway, and then he was doing that, and it got to the point where it had grown quite a lot. I always helped him out with the admin sort of from the beginning, doing all the bits and pieces, accounting and invoices and that kind of thing. But it got to a point where I needed to be a lot more involved in the business, and I needed to be there a lot more. So I kind of took on more of a role. I think at one point I was doing like 3 days a week construction and 2 days a week wedding photography, and then it got to a point, so I gave up the wedding photography. Last year was my first year not doing it, 2024, so I gave it up end of 2023. So I'm still in contact with all my friends from that and everything. So then I was helping out with his construction company, so I'm actually the creative and administrative director for the construction company. And then we had this yard that obviously I'm sitting in now, and we were using it more for storage and kind of keeping materials and office space. And we were like, this isn't the most productive use of the space. So we decided to do something a little bit more productive, and we thought, well, we can add another income stream. Obviously when you're self-employed, it's important to have as many kind of income streams, not have all your eggs in one basket. So we thought, right, what can we do? Let's open a builder's merchant, because we had the space for it. We've got the space for materials. My husband is so busy with his businesses because he's got the construction company and he's also got a civil engineering firm as well. So he's so busy with those. I took point on the merchants, and so he is a director of the merchants, but I run it. He just gives me the odd bit of advice, sort of if there's anything technical that I don't understand or anything, he helps out. And I'm managing director, and now here we are.
Honestly, that's correct. I feel like that's not even close, is it? It makes sense. It feels like quite a natural transition. If you kind of strip it back to wedding photographer, what happened in the middle there? Yeah. How was it going from something so creative to, do you find that your role now is creative, or do you miss that side?
It's really well, actually. So a lot of the things that I learned being a wedding photographer, I draw on in my business, which you wouldn't think there's that much that translates, but actually I do all my own like visual kind of stuff, like website, all my like social media, any graphics that I need to do. So like when I've got a sale on, or when I'm doing offers, or like we've got our first trade day coming up, so I've done all the flyers for that. And I think I haven't got one, but so I've designed all of those. So all that kind of background has really helped in that sort of thing, and I don't have to think too much about it. And actually it's quite nice sometimes to have that kind of escape from all the heavy business stuff, and I can go back to kind of my roots and do something a little bit creative and a bit fun. Like it's nice to do that. So but yeah, it is a pivot, and I think people are like, what? Like, but when I explain the process, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
it definitely does. And I think that probably happens a lot more than we think, that you help someone else out and then you just take on a bit more and a bit more and a bit more.
Yeah.
But yes, it does feel like a complete, as you said, very aesthetic and girly, to the complete opposite. But
100%,
it's nice,
yeah.
and I absolutely love that, and I completely lobby for you. I think it's great. Do you find that you have faced any, not necessarily criticism, but any barriers opening a builder's merchant as a woman, or have you found that it's not really been anything that you've struggled with?
To be honest, not really, no. So obviously before when I was working for Dan's company, I did all the admin and I did all the social media and website and kind of things like that. We did have a YouTube channel at one point, but we stopped doing that for sort of a variety of reasons. So I was out on site a lot and knew all the lads and everything. And I've never in my whole time in construction really come across anything too like bad. You get like the comments. I was at how to explain it, like an aggregates supplier. So aggregates is like sand, stone, that sort of thing, and I get it on the tipper, and then I go out and deliver it to someone, and you tip it out. And I was there, and I had this guy say to me, he looked at me and he went, "Wow, you don't see that very often." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What, a girl?" And he was like, "Yeah, no, you don't see girls very often in construction." And I was like, "No, I suppose not." But we got he was very nice about it. He was just make it, it's more like people make observation, like oh, it's not very often you see like especially builders merchants, like you might see sort of females working like on the desk or whatever. But yeah, it's not very often, to be honest. There's obviously a lot more men in the industry, but I have my sales lead, Kaylee, who works for me, and it's a total, like, it wasn't even a conscious decision to employ her as a woman. Like, it wasn't like, oh, she's a girl, I want a girl to work for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, she was literally the best candidate that I had. So yeah, so it's just funny the way it worked out. I think everyone, when they meet us, they think like it's deliberate, but she was just the best candidate for the job, and she outshone everyone else. So yeah, I was like, she's got the job.
I wanted to come on to that actually, because obviously she's a fairly new hire, isn't she? Which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And kind of how that worked in terms of interviewing process. Did you, I mean, you kind of answered the question almost, I say that she was the best candidate, but did you think that there would be any bias before you started the process, or did you feel really completely open going in?
I was really open, to be fair. Like, for me, because I know that I can do the job regardless of my gender. Like, obviously there's some limits, but that's not really to do with my gender, that's more to do with my size. It's nothing to do with being a woman. But like, certain things I can't lift purely because I'm not big enough. Like, I'm only 5'1", I make a size 8, and I'm just not big enough to lift certain things. I haven't got the weight behind me. So I know from my experience that it doesn't make a difference, your gender, whether that's like I'm looking specifically for a woman or specifically for a man. Like, I don't care, as long as you can do the job. It doesn't matter to me whether you're male, female, whatever. Like, it doesn't, I don't care. Like, I just, I'd rather 100% have somebody who is good at their job than hire someone to fit a box and tick a box and they can't actually do it. Especially in a startup, you're so limited with your resources, and you've got to spend your money so wisely that you have to make sure that you're hiring the right people. So I always hear people talk about, like, founders talk about hire slow, fire fast, which obviously I don't want to fire anyone, and I'm not planning on doing that, but that's what they say.
And doing, oh god,
yeah, she's like, but no, so the important bit for me that I take from that is the hiring slow, because if you rush into hiring someone, then you're just going to cause yourself all sorts of issues. So I was actually looking, so she started in May. I probably started looking must have been like end of January. Yeah, so it took me months to find the right person. And I had somebody who I had really long chats with. I had I was speaking with them back and forth for like weeks. Like, it must have been like 3 weeks or so, and he was male, and I thought he would be perfect and he would have been really good for the job, but there was just some alignments that didn't quite align, and there was some aspects that didn't quite fit in terms of like what he needed from the job and hours and kind of things like that.
Right.
And I had a decision to make. I was like, oh, do I take those kind of compromises on myself and think, okay, well, he would have been really good at the job, like it wouldn't have been a problem, that wouldn't have been the issue, it would have been the other compromises that I had to make in terms of things I needed from him and he needed from me, like getting that balance. So yeah, so I had a decision to make in that sense of like, do I compromise or do I not? And I thought, actually, no, this isn't right. It's not 100% right. Even though he'd be really good in the role, it's not right, the right fit. So I held out, and then along came Kaylee, my lovely sales lead, and yeah, she's doing a brilliant job, and she's super enthusiastic, and yeah, just loves being a part of the merchants, and she's worked in merchants for a long time, so she knows the industry inside out. She's really good at what she does, and I think when you're hiring into a startup as well, you have to have somebody who knows and understands how a startup runs as well, that it's even if they haven't worked in a startup before, that they understand that it's different to working in a fully fledged, business that's been running 20 years, and it's got all the staff, it's got the, the finance departments, it's got the HR department, it's got all the kind of infrastructure behind it. So that was a really important thing for me in terms of making sure that the person understood what they were getting themselves in for as well, because it's tough in a startup sometimes. Not everything runs to plan, not everything, you have to kind of make things work, and yeah, it is what it is. So.
I think you need quite a creative person to work in a startup. I worked in marketing for a startup years ago, it was in the motor industry, and I loved the job. It was amazing, but actually I ended up leaving. And when I spoke to my then boss, and he was saying, why is it that you're leaving? And I said, because I just don't think I'm doing this job justice. I was fresh pretty much out of uni. I was like, you need someone who can be so much more independent than I can be and make these decisions and be so much more reactive. And I think that really has helped me now as a startup owner. In one way I want to hire the graduates, I want to give them the chance that I wasn't given at times, but in the same breath, you need someone who really can just take ownership and run. And I think that's going to be a big thing. I think you're absolutely, I think it was Stephen Bartlett that I heard the hire, slow, fire.
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
Oh, yeah.
And loads of people have come onto his podcast and said exactly the same thing. Exactly. So I was like, okay, so it's not just him saying it. This is like a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I've heard it 2 or 3 times on his podcast, and then from him, like you say, loads of people are saying it. And like, well, if everyone's literally saying the same thing, that's got to be a case. I think it's really hard to choose almost what to hire. Like, how did you come to the decision that it was sales that you needed? If that, I presume, was something you were doing, how did you decide that was an aspect you could let go of?
Yeah, because obviously in the like in a startup you do everything. So like from sales to marketing to accounts to everything, cleaning, everything. So yeah, you're right. You do have to kind of prioritize what do you let go of? What do you, who do you get in? And I think for me, it was sales aren't my forte. I can do it, and it's fine, it's good. But the thing with sales is you need to be able to kind of do it pretty much all day, every day, and you need to be relentless. And obviously that's essentially what brings in your turnover. So if you go off the boil with it because you've got other things to attend to, potentially your turnover is going to drop. Once you've got your established customers, it's obviously a bit different, but then you have to be able to deal with them. So Kaylee obviously at the moment is trying to get in with obviously all new customers and get them on board, and build their trust in us, because obviously we're new, and builders are creatures of habit, use who they use, they have their little routines, they go to the same burger van at the same merchant, so they do what they do, and you have to kind of get into that cycle. So obviously Kaylee's working on that at the moment, and she's doing a great job at that. So obviously if you stop doing that as a startup, then that isn't coming in, because you need to keep that momentum. So for me, I was like, actually, if I have a salesperson who that is just going to take that whole thing, if you imagine a pie chart of the business, sales is quite a big proportion of it, really. And actually then that leaves me free to focus on the bits that I'm better at. That I'm good at sales, I can do sales, it's not a problem, but there are people better at it out there than I am. And so that leaves me free to do like the creative stuff, like making the flyers, making the leaflets, organising the trade day, sorting out pricing, answering emails, inquiries, obviously launched a new website recently, so it gives me a chance to make sure that that's all continuing on and working well, all the accounting stuff you have to keep on top of. So it's just adding in there. So that was, to me, quite an obvious first hire in terms of the salesperson. Then going forward, the next hire, which I'm already kind of on the brink of doing, but I'm not quite there yet, is a delivery driver / yards person. And so I need somebody who is going to keep the yard like tidy, like taking in deliveries, putting them, sorting everything out, loading up deliveries out. So that's, taking the deliveries in, loading up the deliveries to go out, and then obviously delivering out, because I do enjoy doing the deliveries, to be fair. And again, I can do it. I'm fine at it. I'm good at it. I can drive. I get out in me tipper, driving me tipper. Me and Kaylee have been out together today because we had quite a big order to deliver to one of her customers. We've been out in both tippers today delivering that. But it takes a lot of time out of my day.
Yeah.
And as we get busier, it's just going to take all my time. It'll end up that it will be like all day, every day we'll be needing deliveries. And when we get to that point, that's when I'll sort of bring a driver on. But we're not quite there yet. The scale's starting to tip, but we're not
It's
quite
going that way.
Yeah, because
like
it's about getting the balance. You have to get the right balance.
This is it. You almost want to get in there before you don't need them, like before you need them, like say before you're full, but you need to be full to be able to afford them, to be able to warrant
exactly
that jump.
Yeah, because obviously it's, at the end of the day, it's an expense, and especially like a salesperson, obviously they bring in however much turnover they bring in, and as long as they cover their wages and their profit, like the profit margin of what they've sold, happy days. But a driver isn't in the sales, if you like, so we've got to make sure that we're busy enough that we're covering their wage before we do it. So, and also I don't want to employ someone and then they're sat there sort of twiddling their thumbs thinking, oh, what am I going to do? And so it is all a balancing act, and I think that's a lot of stuff in business is a balancing act. But yeah, certainly when to hire is the trickiest one, but that's the next hire anyway. We'll see where we go after that.
That's exciting. I mean, business is obviously doing very well. Like you say, you've hired one, you're looking at hiring a second, you're obviously doing really well. What is it that, and again, I don't really know anything about construction at all, let alone builders, merchants and different roles. What is it that you guys are kind of saying, what's your selling point? Like, as you said, builders are creatures of habit that's moving them from one builder's merchant to you.
So we are between kind of two big-ish towns, like the two biggest towns where I live. There's about, I don't know how far it is, maybe like 15 miles or something in between them, and there's quite a lot of villages in between. We live in one of the villages, and my husband's sites sometimes, not all the time, but are in the villages in between. And he was always like, oh, it's such a pain when you're working like in one of these villages, if you're missing some materials, you had to go all the way. There was one branch of a large national builders merchant, who I'm not going to name, who tend to be on the pricier side, but he was like, realistically, if you want stuff at a better price, then you have to go either all the way to one town or the other. So when we were kind of thinking about this, using this space that we have at the yard, we were like, this is really going to fill a gap in the market, that people can pop and get whatever, like if they're short like a length of timber or a length of pipe, or they need some fittings, or whatever, we're kind of filling that gap. So that's kind of where we sit in the market. And obviously ultimately, as with anything, it comes down, not with that, as with anything, some things don't, but in construction everything comes down to price at the end of the day. So we have to make sure our prices are as competitive as we can get them. Obviously we do hundreds of products, so we're not going to win on everything, but if we can win on most stuff, then people kind of, so long as we're there or thereabouts on the other bits, then we can, we'll win hopefully the job. But yeah, so that's something we constantly obviously have to keep on top of, because also prices change constantly in construction as well. So like sometimes, like sort of every 6 months or so, the prices will change on stuff, on the materials for us to buy. So then we have to decide, look, do we let that eat into the margin a little bit? Like if it's only like a few pence, then obviously it is what it is, it's fine. But if we're sort of eating into our margin by a good few percent, then actually we're going to have to put our prices up. So it's just keeping an eye on those sorts of things.
And going from a service-based business to product, where you've got to learn all of these things. I remember in the groups, obviously you're a member of the All-In group, you talking about, and I can't remember what it's called, I assume probably remember, where you make a loss on one product to make a bigger benefit off another.
Yeah, so like loss leaders, like, so you'll get, I think that's the name for it, someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong,
If not,
but I'm sure it's called like a loss leader. So basically you have certain items that you just can't make much margin on. Like for me, it's things like plaster, like I don't really make any margin on plaster, like bags of plaster and pipe. there's just really very little margin in it. I might make like with pipe, I think I make like 50p a length or something. Like it's very small. I mean, they're only like £10 a length, but it's not, it's not, the margin isn't where you'd want it to be. But then you make a fair margin on the fittings to go with the pipe. So, it's not, it kind of swings and roundabouts. You end up with the overall margin of the order because you can't buy pipe without fittings. So then the overall margin of the order is where you need it to be, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I'm sure I've heard people say that like Tesco's and stuff do this, or like the other supermarkets are available. I'm sure.
Endorse Tesco.
We're not advertising. I'm sure I've heard the supermarkets do this with, like, I might be wrong, but with milk and bread and the kind of staple bits that people always come in for, because then they make better margins on all the other stuff. So then when people buy those things, they might make like 60% on the other stuff, but they'll break even or make a little loss on the milk and the bread and stuff. So how true that is, I don't know, but that's what I've heard. And it makes sense because at the end of the day, when it comes down to your bottom line, it's all about overall margin, not individual bits and pieces.
Let's talk Riviera iced tea. Refreshingly different, created by Fran, a woman who's shaking up the iced tea scene. Tired of overly sugary, bland teas, she decided enough was enough. And now Riviera iced tea is delicious. It's a bold alternative and it's flying off the shelves across all the Lincolnshire co-ops. With fun flavours and 50% off site-wide, there's never been a better time to sip, save and support this fab female founder. Check it all out at rivieraicedtea.com. 100%. I feel like it's, as someone who is purely service, I've always been service based, it boggles my brain how, I'm also not a maths person at all. I get very overwhelmed with maths and numbers. How you get to the point where you can understand that, and let's go with the pipe, your 50p margin. Obviously that just isn't, I bought it for this and sold it for that. That's everything else. Like, how have you generally just taught yourself? Have you, because you were doing a lot of the accounts before, that you've been able to pick this up as you've gone, or have you made mistakes that have made you kind of get better?
Oh yeah, I've made mistakes. Yeah, so some stuff, like I've bought it and then I've had to buy it because somebody needed it, and it was like, we'll just get it in. And then I was like, oh god, the price on that really wasn't good. Like I should have bartered that down more. Right. And yeah, it's just not. I'm like, oh no. And like currently at the moment, I've got plaster, which I need to put on a sale because it's going to go out of date soon. And I'm like, oh no, because it's not managed to go before. So yeah, definitely mistakes get made, and it's just part of, but mistakes will get made like the whole time, things happen, and you just don't realize the date is short on the plaster, or you don't kind of, someone overcharges you by accident because they've pressed the wrong code or something, or but with regards to the margins and stuff, like self-taught, so yeah, I mean, there is all the other delivery costs and stuff that go into it. And I think the way I do it is I see, because it's difficult at the moment because I haven't got a driver. So the cost element of it in terms of delivery is like my time, which at the moment is free, apparently.
Yeah, mine's free too.
Yeah, so, that's always fun. It's hard to quantify whether, I think the best thing to do is to work out, I've got a big spreadsheet on my computer which shows me, so month by month, so I've got a projection of the next 2 years, not projection of turnover necessarily, but how much it's going to cost me per month to run. So I've got everything on there. So I've got a section for like kind of all my bills, if you like. So I've got like rent, rates, electric, I don't have gas here, all the kind of phones, all those kind of little bits and pieces, accountancy fees that come out. And then underneath I have a section for the wages. So obviously in the projection I've added in when I think I'm going to be employing people. And so obviously Kaylee's wages in there because she's started now. So, and then underneath all my PAYE and stuff that I'm going to have to pay each month. So obviously, because you have your contributions and everything, and like pensions and all that kind of thing. So that gives all of those, and that gives me this is the turnover I need to hit in that month. If this is all my outgoings to break even on that month, this is the turnover I need to hit. So long as I hit, so obviously when I add in my delivery drivers and, all that. So as the projections go through, and I can't remember when I've put it, I think it's later this year about the delivery driver. I think I put it for like maybe September or something. That I was thinking. So when we get, obviously I'm not beholden to it. If I want to employ someone earlier, then I can. It's not a problem. But in my projections, that's when I kind of estimated. So then those months, obviously the turnover required goes up. And then that gives me a look at, right, okay, so this month we need to turn over this amount at, I think I set it at like if I was at a 15% margin overall, this is how much I need to turn over to break even on a 15% margin. So long as I'm averaging a 15% margin, then I'm going to be there or thereabouts. Obviously, any turnover that's over that, then that'll be profit. So yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm like taking notes. I'm like, oh my God. I find it really, really confusing. But no, that actually really helped, if I'm being honest.
I have a really good friend who he owns builders merchants as well. He's actually one of mine and my husband's really good friends, and he's helped me a lot with sort of any questions I've had. He was the one who kind of taught me how to do that, and was like, you need to go through and do this, do that. We never, well, I don't know, I don't, but we never think of these things ourselves. I think we always take inspiration from someone else, and if I can pass it on, then if I can, what do they say, pay it forward, then I will. But he's helped me a lot. Like, he helped me with my interviews when I was doing interviews and stuff, and because obviously he already does it, so he knows kind of what he's doing in that terms of things. So he's like 15 years down the line from where I am now. So he's a handy friend to have in the job that I do. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what's it like for you in terms of networking? Does networking, and I guess that does count, and does that play a big part in your either your strategy or your support network, or do you find that it's just a bit different? Or I kind of imagine it's more pint in a pub, but that might be being a bit stereotypical.
No, that's not, no, you're bang on. Yeah, to be fair with builders, it's funny because I think because I'm so busy in the business, I don't have time. There's quite a lot of like trade shows and all that kind of thing, and obviously I get reps in like every 5 minutes. Like the other day I had four. So reps are like salespeople for like materials. They'll come into the shop and be like, oh, we sell this material, here's a brochure, can we supply you? And I get loads of them in. I had a post go a bit bonkers on LinkedIn, and it got like 60,000 views, and which I don't really know LinkedIn that well. I don't know whether that's a lot or not or whatever. It was my post introducing Kaylee to the business, and it had like 60,000 views, like 400 comments, and yeah, it just went a bit bonkers. And I'm not joking, it must have been into the 3-figure number of reps contacting me saying, because all these people had seen it, and obviously LinkedIn's that's what people use it for, is that kind of thing. So I had messages and I had phone calls and I had people coming in the shop, and I was like, oh my God, like I actually can't get anything done. Like,
Like, what have I done?
Literally, I was like, oh my God, this is so busy. Like, I actually don't know. I ended up, I felt awful, like, especially in messages on LinkedIn. Like one day, I think I got like 20 in a day, and I was like, I can't actually answer you all. I just had to ignore them. I was like, I'm really sorry. And I thought, if they care that much, then they'll get back in touch, or they'll come down or whatever. And sometimes it really helps, because sometimes you find people who perhaps you wouldn't have found before. So yeah, it's sorry, someone's just popped in. And so yeah, it is helpful in that sense, because like you might find a supplier for something that you didn't, or you might not have great rates with the current supplier, so you find a new supplier and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, it was very overwhelming when I had that post go on LinkedIn. So I had 4 turn up in one day, and I had 2 turn up at the same time. So I'd had 2 in the morning, and then in the afternoon, one turned up, and like 30 seconds later, another one came in, and I was like, oh my God, like this is a bit much. And I was like, I just felt really awkward, because they sort of looked at each other like, hi. And I was like, oh, it's like war of the reps in here. Like, what's going on? So anyway, I can't actually remember what your original question was, because I went on a bit of a tangent there. But, no, that's what we were talking about. So networking's a funny one. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of trade days and that kind of thing. I get a lot of reps in. So there's a lot of like seeing people in the industry. But it's, yeah, like I say, it's so busy that it's like, well, what do I, I've got to kind of balance it. Yeah, so it is a tricky one. And I think it's something that will come into the kind of fore more when I've got more people working for me, and I don't have to wear all the hats, and I don't have to do sort of everything.
You can be more working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, at the moment, obviously, like I say, I'm still going out doing deliveries, still loading up. So yeah, it's still driving my little forklift around.
Great.
Yeah, it's good fun, actually, to be fair. I'll never give up my forklift. I like my forklift.
Do you know what I do? When I see people driving, I think, oh, do you know what? I'd love to do that.
It's really good fun, yeah.
It's really good fun. I worked for a renewables company, and I was out and they were doing the cherry picker, and there was a guy stood in the front cage of the cherry picker, and someone stood on the roof and was like, giving it all this and like, up and down and round. I was like, I want to do that. That looks like so much fun.
Yeah, although cherry pickers look wobbly to me. Like, I don't know if I'd want to go up in a cherry picker.
Do you know, it was when like the feet come down at the front to like secure it. I was like, oh, that's piece of kit.
Yeah, that's what you need. Yeah,
Oh, one of
definitely.
those, that'd be great. Standing in
Yeah.
the middle of a high street shouting about Orloon, that's gonna be brilliant.
Yeah,
Get a
that's what you're gonna do
megaphone.
with a little megaphone.
Yeah,
That'd make a good TikTok.
that would. Quite an expensive marketing trick, though.
Yeah, you need a friend with one. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know
Yeah,
anyone?
but that's why I started. No, I don't, unfortunately. But that's why I started. I because obviously I do post on TikTok, and that's why I kind of started posting on TikTok. Funnily enough, because of the kind of not because of the networking, but because before Kaylee worked for me, I was really quite. It sounds silly, but I was quite lonely. Like even though I
Yeah.
had my husband involved, he's out on site a lot, so he's not here. And it was kind of like I didn't really have anyone to talk to about things, or like even anyone just to talk to chat to in general. So it was almost like I felt like I was chatting to someone if I posted a TikTok, and now I've just quite got into it and I quite enjoy it. And I think I've got over cringe mountain now. That's what they say, isn't it? Like you have to kind of get past the bit where you're cringing at yourself, and then yeah, you get past it. And
When I do that, some of the ways I show up on TikTok, like I used to like full face makeup, like get the right lighting, I'd be all,
yeah,
composed. Now I'll be in bed and I'm like, literally I posted one the other day, and when I say the angle was
people love that
watching and
though.
sharing
People
on
love that.
TikTok. And yeah, it did so much better than anything else that was polished.
Yeah, people love to. I don't think people like it too polished. I think
No.
TikTok I find is more of like a raw thing rather than a like I find Instagram they kind of want it a little bit more polished. Like it needs to be not so much on stories, but I think Instagram like your posts and stuff is a little bit more of the kind of
Front shot.
your showcase, like your kind of shop window. And I feel like TikTok's a bit more like behind the scenes and oh my god, I can't believe what's just happened. Sort of
Agreed.
yeah,
People love the
drama.
drama.
Yeah, yeah. Although I have been rinsed for my eyebrows on TikTok before, and I was like, right, guys, like, what is this? Like, I like my eyebrows. Like, can you leave my eyebrows alone? I think it was a bot because it was one specific video, and I've not had anyone comment on any of my other videos, and I quite like my eyebrows. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. But I got like 3 or 4 comments on this one video about my eyebrows, and I was like, I feel like this is some kind of bot, like, putting these in, because it's not, it doesn't seem like people. Do you know what I mean? And it was all like faceless accounts, like there was no pictures or anything, and I was like, oh, so not cool.
I just want to clap back at them.
Yeah, I think I did do one, and I was like, because it like I've got really thick skin, like nothing bothers me, nothing offends me. I'm very inoffendable, like which is well, I think I do fairly well. Like I do all right in this industry because obviously it's a tough industry, but nothing. I have really thick skin, but I did cut back at that one, and I was like, would you actually go and say that to someone in the street? Like you wouldn't say that to someone if you saw someone and you thought, oh, your eyebrows are, I don't know, whatever. You wouldn't go up to them and be like, your eyebrows are rubbish. So yeah, it's a very strange mindset on TikTok, but it is what it is. So I think you have to post on it knowing what you're getting yourself in for, and just go forward with it, just roll with it.
Completely agree. Now, I would love to end with the 2 questions that I ask everybody that comes on. One is a little bit more tricky than the other one, and one's a nice and easy question. Would you prefer the easy or the hard first?
I don't mind. You choose whatever you think works best.
I've never been told that. I'll go hard first. Everyone else goes hard first.
Okay.
I feel pressured. What is one thing that you don't know currently that you feel like you probably should know? And you can be super open and honest. I, for example, once said I don't actually understand how TikTok works. I don't know how to edit. I have since learned. I've said that I don't understand what VAT is. I have since learned. So yeah, it can be anything at all.
Something I don't know. I think in terms of obviously for me there's a lot of product knowledge which has improved a lot since I started, but I think product knowledge can always grow because it's always changing as well, to be fair. And I think in terms of the systems, once we get bigger, like so once we scale more, that I will have to bring in systems that I don't have in now. Our systems work very well as we are set up now, and to be fair I think will work for quite a while, like quite an increase in turnover. However, I think when we get to a certain point we'll have to bring in new systems, and at that point that will definitely be something I don't know. But Kaylee obviously has a lot of experience in Builders Merchant. She's worked in some of the bigger, more national ones. So yeah, I'm sure we'll manage to traverse it together, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that one. And then the nice and easy question. If I were to ring you and say, Nikki, I'm around the corner, I'm grabbing a coffee, what is it? What am I picking up for you?
I knew you were going to ask this because I've listened to them before. And I'm terrible because I don't actually drink tea or coffee. I don't drink any hot drinks. I know. So if I was going to a coffee shop, I would get a frappuccino, but not a coffee one, like a chocolate frappe or something like that. Like I love those in the summer, but the only trouble is in the winter it's rubbish because I don't drink any hot drinks. So it's always disappointing when I come in the office. Our office is freezing as well. Like when you first come in the morning, it doesn't have central heating, so it's only got the wall heaters. So you have to turn them on and wait for them to heat up. So I'm like, I would love to love coffee and just sit with a nice hot tea or coffee, but I'm useless. I don't. Like when I was a wedding photographer, I used to obviously go to bride prep in the morning, so I'd like go in and photograph them getting ready and all that kind of thing. They'd always be like, do you want a tea or coffee? What can I get for you? And I was like, no, I'm fine, thank you. And they'd be like, no, honestly, I'll get you whatever you want. And I was like, no, I'm not being polite, I just don't drink it. It's a lifelong thing, but I think it's a good thing, to be fair. I think it is a good thing. So it's probably better for my health. Yeah. I don't get this whole thing of, when people go like, oh, I can't function until I've had my coffee in the morning. I'm like, what? Like, what? Is that you? Are you one of them?
You know what? It used to be me. Since converting over to matcha, I now can go like all afternoon. Like this morning, I was like, oh yeah, actually, I do want one. So I had a coffee, but I don't need it anymore. And
I really want to try a matcha because I'm easily influenced. Like I am like TikTok's favorite person because I'm so easily influenced. Yeah. But I really want to try a matcha, and I haven't been brave enough. Well, to be fair, I don't ever go to coffee shops, so. No, there isn't really any sort of near me, so yeah, I must try a matcha. But then I'm scared. Like I'm going to spend like £4 on this drink. Like, what if it's horrible? Because I think it's an acquired taste.
You need to go with someone who likes matcha. That's what
try a bit of theirs.
Yeah, whenever I go with my friends who haven't tried it, they'll always try mine. Because if I'm having a hot matcha, I just have it with a bit of honey. If I'm having a cold matcha, it's like, and you won't get this because you don't drink hot drinks. People feel like it's like Christmas in a mug. It's like warm, motherly hug in a mug.
Oh, that sounds delightful. See, I really wish I drank, but my husband's always like, oh, just try this. It's a latte with like vanilla or whatever. And he's like, you might like this one. And I'm like, no, it's just, I try it, but I just, can't do it. And tea just tastes like grass. I'm sorry. Tea tastes like grass. Controversial opinion, but.
If you think tea tastes like grass, you're probably not going to like matcha. It's definitely on the grassier side.
It's on the grassier side. Okay, maybe I need a friend who's drinking matcha. If I see someone drinking matcha, I'm going to be like,
just run up to them. Excuse me, I've got a straw. Can I try a bit?
Just a random person. Yeah, but no. So there you go. Sorry to disappoint.
Do you know what? At this point, so many people don't drink coffee. I'm getting used to it. So I think it's a bit of a movement, but there we go. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like you've been really open and honest, and I do really appreciate it. I have taken stuff away, so I'm sure other people will too. And best of luck. I just can't wait to watch it grow, and I want to grab you about some flyer stuff because I'm flyering and creating at the minute, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, sure, go for it. No, thank you so much for having me. It's been it's my first ever podcast, so it's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it, so thank you so much.
No, you're more than welcome, and until next time, we'll see you soon.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to All Loon Off the Course, the space where women building businesses don't do it alone. If you loved today's episode, make sure to hit subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with a fellow founder who needs to hear this. I'm Hattie, and I'll see you next time.